Hello again and welcome to Surviving Religion with Paul and Sandi. Sit down, strap in, and hold on for the ride as these two new atheists walk you through what it means to be recovering from religion. Remember, we're not religion's enemies, we're its victims.
Say hi, everybody. What are we called? We're a couple of heathens in Alabama.
There we go.
And we got some shit we want to talk to y'all about.
And she says you all right at the beginning. Okay, some of us are not, I'm a heathen in Alabama, but I will not say y'all, I promise. That'll be the first and last time you hear me say that. The name of this podcast is Surviving Religion. I'm Paul.
And I'm Sandi.
And before we get too far into this, we've got a story we want to share with you. All right, so see, the whole point of this podcast is both of us are newbies. You know, there's this whole new atheist movement out there. However, when it comes to podcast world, there aren't a whole lot of new atheists podcasting. We came across each other through a local support group, I guess you would call it. And both of us are completely new atheists. We're about as new as you're gonna get. And we both had some interesting stories, and we both had the scars of religion to prove that we have interesting stories. So the whole gist of this podcast is we're gonna be candid, we're gonna be real. All of this shit that we're gonna talk about, by the way, is gonna be a very raw. There we go. It's gonna be a raw podcast. So if you're not friendly with raw, if you're not down with the raw, you might wanna go find yourself another podcast to listen to. But we're going to be real. We're going to be real with who we are and what we think about things. And hopefully we're going to reach all those people out there that struggled like we did in our own individual ways. And maybe we can be the catalyst for you to seek support, the catalyst for you to make some decisions in your life. Maybe we can be that one thing that helps you break the chains of religion. So, the overarching theme is religion sucks. It really sucks. It can fuck up a life so quickly. And there is no better way. We were sitting here talking. We're podcasting from our secret location. We started about 45 minutes ago talking about how we were going to launch this first podcast. And for the last 20 minutes, we've been doing something that those of you from the future won't know about until we admit it here in a couple of seconds. But I want you to remember that this is the horror of religion. This is the extent to what religion, the harm that religion does. So, Sandi,
to keep from embarrassing my family, my parents, and the people who indoctrinated me into my religion, I was trying to come up with a stage name. And it sounds so stupid because anybody out there that wants to talk about their religion can just openly talk about it with their own name, and nobody gives a shit.
no
but
lies
for
are
me,
batted.
For me to say, hey, I'm Sandi, and my religion sucked, and I'm so glad to be out of it, I can't do that. I feel like somebody's gonna sue me, or my parents are gonna fucking, disown me. I felt like I needed to change my name for the purpose of this, and that's something that's just... it's fucked up. It's fucked up.
It's fucked up. Seriously, she went through a couple different names, and it wasn't just like, hey, what do you think about Savannah? Oh, that's a cool name. Blah, 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 blah.
We didn't talk about Savannah. That would have been a cool name.
That would have been a cool name. That would have been a cool name. But then we would have associated it to that part of the country.
Hey, so, forget what I said. My name is Savannah.
Yeah, we're going...
Nobody's gonna sue me.
We're gonna go edit everything.
I kinda like that name. No, let's go with that. No.
We really don't know what we're doing here. We really don't. Okay, but she did. Seriously, she went through a couple different names, to try to figure out which, and they all sucked, by the way. I mean, she's a southern gal, and her southernness came out.
I tried Cindy Lou, but apparently that was one of the Who's or something.
There's no two names. You're not getting two first names. You either pick a damn first name, or you leave it at that. There's no double names. I can't do double names. So we spent 20 minutes when we could have been, like pumping out episode 1 and 2 for you guys. Just trying to figure out what name she was gonna go with. We make light of it. We laugh about it because I think like the alternative is to cry.
Yeah.
I think that's the only other thing we can do.
But I feel like that's a big issue. It's not just the fact that I wouldn't want to speak with my name attached to it. It's that most atheists don't want to say that they're atheists, or they don't want to admit that they don't believe in their religion anymore, just because it's something that's so attached to their family and their heritage and the way that they were raised. People don't want to... parents feel like they did something wrong. And that's my thing, is why I don't want my name attached to something where I'm saying that I'm an atheist, because my parents would be embarrassed that they would feel like they failed as parents.
I think that's a common theme for a lot of folks. I mean, I know when I talk to my mother, and I actually still haven't had that conversation with her. She won't have that conversation with me. She knows where I'm at, but she will not actually allow me to stop and talk with her and say, and she knows when I lead in, I'll say, Mom, there's something we got to talk about. And she will change the subject, or she will straight up tell me, Paul, I don't want to talk about this. She knows what I'm going to say, so she'll know what I'm going to lead into, and she will purposely, whatever avoidance tactic works for her.
But how did you tell your mother that you were an atheist?
I haven't.
So...
I will say I did not know that she knew where I was in my life until about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, check that. It was probably like a month ago. You remember the Oklahoma tornadoes? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, the Oklahoma tornadoes happened. All kinds of bad shit happened. Lots of property damage. Unfortunately, some people were killed. Do you remember the story about the school teacher that protected the children? Okay.
Yes, and she said I did something that school teachers weren't supposed to do.
And what was that she did?
She prayed.
She prayed, yes,
because
she
everybody
did.
Fucking hates it when teachers pray.
Everybody hates when teachers pray.
Yeah.
So she prayed. And did it stop at that? No. It's not enough for this teacher to actually talk about the fact that she prayed. To news agencies, Christian Nazis had to jump on this and start building memes out of this. So one of the memes that somebody built out of it was this, horrific picture of a schoolhouse, probably not even one in Oklahoma, but a schoolhouse, and the backdrop was this monstrous blackened sky with this huge tornado bearing down on the school, and the header and the footer of the meme was, just like Sandi said, and in that moment, I did something that a teacher ain't supposed to do. I prayed to God. Yes, I did.
But you know what? I saw that meme somewhere, and I commented. I said, I guess she didn't pray hard enough. Because the fucking tornado hit anyway. And it's really mean, but I mean, I understand somebody that's got that. I feel like it's brain training. You're trained to pray when you're backed into a corner. And so, regardless of your religious stance at any point in time, I could understand even a new atheist backed into a corner would probably pray.
Right.
Because it's ingrained so much into their thinking that when you're that much out of control of what's going on, to just say, Dear God, please help me.
Right.
It can't hurt, right? It can't hurt to ask.
But it can't hurt to...
But to go out there and say, hey, look what I did, it's...
Well, see, that leads me back to my mom. Right, because the teacher goes out there and says that. And my mom celebrates this woman's, I don't even want to call it an accomplishment, but she celebrates this woman's statement, that she prayed for these children and she protected them. And she was brave because she did what she wasn't supposed to do.
That's not brave.
Well, my point to my mother puts this meme up on her Facebook, celebrating this woman, and my comment was, I'm glad that that she took action for these children, because one, she did something instead of just praying about it. But two, it really concerned me that a teacher in the American school system either is a liar, because what she said was, I did something that teachers aren't supposed to do. So either she's a liar or she's ignorant of the law. And that's what my focus of my comments were. My mom's reply to that, we went back and forth a couple of times, and my mom's reply to that was, well, I celebrate her. You can choose to think about her how you want. But when everything turns bad, what are those people who don't believe? Who are they going to turn to? I know you don't believe, and I really worry about who we're going to turn to. And that's how she left it. So that was the first revelation I had, that my mother had an idea that I didn't believe.
Well, this goes back to the whole atheist and foxholes thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's not the fact that, let me backstep. It's great to think that somebody's listening. And I understand, and lots of my relatives have told me that, hey, wouldn't it be great to think that somebody up there's looking out for you? Sure, yep. It would be.
It would be.
Would be fucking awesome to think that, hey, if I need something, I can say, dear sweet baby Jesus.
Oh, Lord. Thank you for my smoking hot wife.
Right! And something's gonna happen for me. And somebody's looking out, and I'm gonna drive fast, you know? But it's not going to happen. And the sooner you realize that, the more in control of your own life you can be. And I told my dad this, and I'm like, I actually came out to my parents. And I told my dad, I don't believe. That was my opening statement, and I had no idea what I was going to do with this conversation. I told my mom first, and my mom was like, you need to talk to your dad. I really, really did not want to talk to my dad. But when I talked to my dad, he says, well, don't you think it's kind of depressing to think that there's nobody up there looking out for you? And I said, well, it might be, but that's not a reason to believe in something that I don't believe is true. It's not a reason to believe in a fairy tale. I would love to believe that, you know, all of this stuff is real, but I can't just make myself believe it. It's not that easy. It's not what I want to believe, it's what I've been shown. And I can't believe something that I don't have evidence for. And I think that that's something that, honestly, one of the things that my dad told me when I told him that I'm an atheist, he said, well, I knew this was going to happen. You've been going to school. You've been getting educated. And
Damn education.
Most people, when they start getting real smart, they stop believing in God. And I said, so you're telling me that I'm too smart for your religion? Because I feel like you just called yourself stupid. And I didn't want to laugh at him, but I thought, yeah.
Did you laugh at him?
That's me. No, I didn't.
You didn't. Nice.
I was polite.
She's polite.
I was polite.
You're gonna, anybody listen to this in the future, obviously, because we're just recording our first episode tonight, so we don't have anybody to listen to this right now. You're gonna learn that Sandi can be polite, but she can also have a little bit of a...
I'm a bitch.
I wasn't gonna say that. not right away. Okay, so there you go. There's your lead-in, folks, to the podcast. Is you got two brand new, relatively brand new. I don't want to speak for you. Mine's been within probably my deconversion officially, formally, when I could actually say I'm an atheist and not, get that shiver down the spine. Probably in the last 6 months. What about you?
A year ago, I came out to my parents.
Okay.
But I think it's been about 3 years that I've been, I knew.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's been a long time, and I know that a lot of people who've grown up with religion probably go through the same thing. It's part of your heritage, and it's a tradition, and it's something that it's scary to break away from, because you're shattering your entire worldview.
Yeah.
It's not... I told you about that meme earlier. It's like... I saw a meme earlier about a female in an abusive relationship, and I have been in an abusive relationship, and so I can compare that. It is a direct parallel to religion. It is the exact same fucking thing. The things that guy told to me are the exact same fucking things that people told me about religion. It's God saying, don't question it. Don't question it. Don't let other people get in your head about it. We've got something nobody else has. Or, you don't deserve my love, and I do this because I love you, and I don't want to do this, but you make me do this. It's so, how do you not see that? You don't see it when you're in it. You don't. But once you get out of it and you take a couple steps back and look at it, it's fucking mind-blowing. But it was one of those things. It was just like getting out of an abusive relationship. I started having doubts, and it took me a good couple of years to actually admit to myself that I don't believe this anymore. It started with, okay, I'm not saying I don't believe anymore, but I don't agree with organized religion. I'm not going to go to church anymore. I don't think I want to give the church money anymore. And that's a whole separate issue. They're fucking, it's a business.
Oh, yeah.
They're, hey,
and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point.
Give us your money. But yeah, I stopped going to church. And then I stopped wanting to hang out with all my religious friends because they had all these fucking little stupid rules that they wanted me to abide by if I hung out with them. do you know what I mean? Like, don't use that kind of language around
Oh,
me.
yeah.
And then it
That
was
image protection type of
that, and they would ask me when was the last time I went to church, and have I been praying, and I'll pray for you, and it was just uncomfortable. I'm not sure if I believe that anymore, and I don't know if I want to. I didn't want to admit to myself, and I sure as fuck didn't want to admit it to my friends. So I was kind of. It took me a long time. It took me a long time and a lot of not talking about it and just trying to research for myself before I was able to.
You had it different from me. I mean, this is our first podcast, so our goal here is to make sure that, like I said, those of you who are new to the podcast or years from now you come across us and you're struggling with your own beliefs, I've got a very humanistic outlook on life. I want to be able to help people where there wasn't somebody to help me before. And just give you the backstory, what Sandi had just been telling you mirrors a lot of my own experience. Calling myself, I grew up Catholic. I was Catholic into my 20s. It wasn't until my late 20s that I finally threw up my hands because I'd been struggling for years with Catholicism and its rigorous rule set, and it just didn't. There was a dissonance there. It didn't make sense to me. And I found a way into an independent Baptist church, and that was the first time that I learned that there was a personal relationship with God, and it was about you accepting Jesus, and it wasn't about this scorecard that the fucking Catholic Church keeps on.
No, I went
these
to
are your good deeds.
Baptist church.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, a lot. I mean,
what kind of Baptist though?
Southern Baptist, is that a thing?
Well, see,
the one with the fried chicken.
Yeah, it was Southern Baptist. That was my point. What I was trying to lead to was I struggle with that, and I did that slow decline into the heathen that I am today. And I did that. I was one of those dudes that was spiritual but not religious for years. I was a guy that had, the Dead Sea Scroll Deception, the book. I can't even remember the author for years. So that was there, but I wasn't motivated to truly look at my religious, spiritual, atheistic makeup until I moved to where we are now. Now you grew up in this environment. I want that to resonate with folks who are listening. I struggled with all the bullshit that I read in the Bible and it didn't make sense to me, but I still excused it. I still did the mental gymnastics and I jumped around about how baby Jesus made it all right in my head until I got here. I mean, I think we can talk about where we're at, right? In general. I mean, we're in Alabama. Let's just throw that out there.
We're in Alabama.
We're in Alabama. I wasn't motivated to do anything and to even call myself an atheist until I got here. So for somebody like you, I can only imagine.
No, I grew up where everybody that you come in contact with is a Christian. There are different denominations, but they're all Christian. And I bounced around, and my parents were in church and they were out of church. And so we didn't always go to church, but it was always expected that we were supposed to say our bedtime prayers and pray before meals and so on and so forth. And I would make little jokes, and I think always, like, from a very young age, I was always kind of not so much skeptical as whether or not God existed, but skeptical into the practices. The stuff that we had to go through. The prayer before meals. We'd pray before a meal, and I'd have my eyes open and not praying. And a cousin would say, I mean, this is a huge family gathering, and a cousin would say, "Hey, you didn't close your eyes." Well, how did you know? If your eyes were supposed to be closed too, how did you know? And, well, why weren't you praying then? And I said, well, I asked baby Jesus to bless all my meals for the rest of my life because they're starving babies. And I was really, honestly, I wasn't trying to be funny. I was really concerned about the starving kids in third world countries. I said, I'd rather God focus on those kids than focus on blessing my meals. So I asked him when I was younger to bless all my meals for the rest of my life. And I really honestly believed that would free up some of God's time. And that would help him.
I love that story.
It went from that to like, why are we praying? Because everybody tells me God has this perfect plan. And if God has a perfect plan, then why am I praying? Because I'm either going to change his perfect plan, which is kind of impossible. Or he didn't have a perfect plan to begin with. I was completely perplexed by the idea of prayer. Because either God knows what's going to happen or he doesn't know what's going to happen. And my prayer is not going to affect it one way or the other. Because if I pray for rain and you pray that there's not going to be any rain, then one of us is getting a prayer that's not, we're getting a prayer, and one of us is getting prayer answered, and the other one's not.
Well, that just means that the truer Christian gets their prayer answered.
No, what I was told in church was, if God didn't answer your prayer, it's because He had better plans in store. He had some other plan that's awesome that you can't even comprehend.
You can't comprehend it. You can't see it. I mean, it's bigger than you.
But if your prayer was answered, it was, let's all throw our hands in the air and praise God because He answered your prayer, and it's a fucking miracle, and nobody else could have done this. And
I love that. You gotta admit, he's got a pretty good gig. He's got a pretty good gig.
It's too fucking easy. You get all the credit.
You get all the credit.
You get all the credit and none of the blame.
None of it.
It's not fair. Nobody ever hates God.
Well, that's because it's our fault. Whatever goes wrong is our fault. Or we're just too myopic to understand.
No. What it is if you hate God, you're going to hell. You're
going
to burn in hell. So you better be fucking glad that God didn't answer your prayer.
Yeah, I've been glad many times. Many times.
No, everybody has like a turning point where they start to realize, and you realize this in Christianity, there's the day that you were saved. Well, for me, there's not a day, I can't pinpoint a day, but there's a time period in my life where I was rescued, I was saved from my religion. And I can tell you it was the time that my parents disowned me. And they disowned me because I wasn't following along with their religion. And I was embarrassing to them, and I was embarrassing to their religion because I didn't fall in line with what Christianity would have wanted me to do. And that was what caused me to really reflect on everything that I had ever been taught and figure out if I believed it because I believed it or if I followed along with it because I was told to. And I just thought to myself, if somebody could hate me because of this, then this religion really isn't a good thing. I feel, and I think that it's a humanistic type of thing.
Right.
I've always wanted what's best for everybody around me. Everybody around me. I've never really wanted to have any enemies. And I always thought kind of an Anne Frank kind of thing. You know, everybody's kind of good on the inside. I want to believe that. It's probably not true.
No,
But I want to believe that, and so I want the best for everyone, and I just can't understand why a parent would hate their child. And my parents treated me as though they hated me for this huge period of my life where I was just going through a lot of growing up and a lot of emotional trauma. And for my parents to come down and say, you don't belong to us anymore, don't call us unless it's life or death, it's just, we don't want anything to do with you, you're embarrassing to us. I can't imagine, I don't have kids, but I can't imagine doing that to my child.
Right.
And if a religion would cause somebody to do that to their child, then that religion deserves a little scrutiny. And I think that, I don't think I'm wrong for examining my beliefs and
right.
thinking, and all of my relatives thought I was crazy for going in and saying, I'm thinking about things. Plain and simple. I'm not going to church, and I'm going to look at why I believe what I believe, and why what I believe and what I followed my whole life has caused my dad to feel like he doesn't love me anymore.
Right. No, I can relate to the having the kids aspect of it, and I can't imagine anything, and I mean anything, that my kids could do to me or do in their lives that would make me say the things that, you know, you've shared about what your parents did to you over beliefs. It's not knowledge. We're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about beliefs. There's a, you know, and I have to make that distinction. We know the sun's going to come up, or we can predict that the sun's going to come up because it's been doing it for millions of years. That's knowledge. There's a lot of things we believe. I believe soccer is the greatest sport in the world. I believe black is the coolest color in the world. Religion falls into that category. It's a belief until something changes and until we have that evidence that, you know, the more skeptical people require, it falls into the category of what's the coolest music, what's the best kind of genre of book or movie, et cetera, et cetera. So for me to hear that your parents would even think like that, for one, to actually verbalize that and then follow through with actions.
Well, this is what happened. It was, I moved in with my then boyfriend, who eventually became my husband. I moved in with him before I married him, and my dad said, you know, if you're going to live with somebody, you need to be married to him. And that started a huge snowball of events in my life where, you know what, I didn't move out. I stayed there, and I didn't marry him right away. I eventually did, but I didn't right then, and I was gonna do what I was gonna do, and it was gonna be what I wanted, and it wasn't gonna be just because my dad told me what to do, because at that point I was trying to break free from just doing what I was told. And I think that that's all religion is just do what you're told, and don't ask any questions. Give Jesus your 10% of your shit every week when you come in, and just be submissive. And when I moved in with him, I moved in with him because, you know, I'm not gonna lie, and I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I moved in with him because I just needed a place to stay at the time. And my dad just came down on me.
He's not going to listen to this, is
my
he?
dad came down on me. Yeah, he probably is.
Great.
My dad came down on me and was like, hey, you can't do that. You're embarrassing me. And God says don't lay with a man until you're married. And so he says, you know, you either need to move out or you need to get married. And I was like, you know what? I'm not in a position to move out. Because in Alabama, listeners, I don't know if any of you are from Alabama, but the legal age in Alabama to own anything or to put anything in your name at all is 19, not 18.
Not 18. Nope.
So I was 18. I couldn't get an apartment if I fucking wanted to. I was completely screwed. I had to find a roommate. So why not have that be the person that I'm spending all of my time with anyway? But yeah, I can't imagine why a religion would cause a father to say, well, never mind then. If you're not going to do what I want, I don't love you anymore. I thought it was supposed to be unconditional love, and that's ridiculous.
Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's indicative of just how pervasive this can be. And one of my favorite things is, I don't even want to call it my favorite thing. One of the things I keep falling back on a lot is when people go through like what you're going through, or what I go through, not with my parents, but with, to a degree, my mother and then my siblings, it's all based on religion. A lot of people, what they like to do is they like to do this rationalization game where they blame it on societal factors or whatever. But if you strip that away, what are the societal factors based on? The foundation is the religious doctrine. That religious foundation, you build upon that for societal reasons, et cetera, gender role issues, all that stuff. But you strip that stuff away, it all boils down to religion. All of it boils down to religion.
Well, what's scary is that when you're taught from a very, very young age that God's real, yeah, and that all of this stuff is real and it's not to be questioned, and if you question it, you're probably going to go to hell. It's scary.
Well, depending on what your upbringing is, it's not even a probably. It's a you will.
It's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking, maybe this isn't real, I still had that thinking in the back of my mind, like, what if that's just the devil? Because that's what they tell you. They tell you that if you ever doubt it, it's the devil. And the devil's only telling you to doubt it because he wants you to go to hell. And it's fucking terrifying.
Well, unless you're a Catholic.
It sounds stupid as an adult to say this, but I really thought the devil was putting thoughts in my head. And then it's like parents teaching their children to believe in the boogeyman. Why would you do that to your child? Why would you say, hey, believe this, or you're going to burn forever?
Well, but Catholicism takes that a step further, though, and it's more than just the devil. Yeah, they introduce that, and they love to introduce hell and all those horrible images, to do to a child. But Catholicism is built on the foundation of guilt. I mean, I'm still, at this age, still new atheist, but I've been doubting for years upon years upon years, and I'm still, at this point in my life, dealing with the guilt of... I'm dealing with guilt, and I'm trying to process that guilt and realize I'm okay for who I am. So yeah, you got the hell factor, but when I was a Catholic, all those thoughts, all those questions that you may have had or listeners may have had, that also reflected on me. Catholics love to do that. They love to turn it back on the person and make the person question themselves. When you're an adult, that's bad enough. To take somebody who's thinking, like you mentioned abusive relationships. I've worked in anger management groups. I've worked in family advocacy clinics that dealt with military domestic violence. And you're right. It falls right in that neat little box.
There's no domestic violence in the military.
Right. And there's no sexual assault in the military either.
No.
Whoa.
Definitely no atheists.
And there's definitely no atheists. I mean, hell, we don't even need chaplains for atheists because, I mean, our leadership in this country's told us there's no need for them.
No.
There's no need. There's no... Man, we have so many issues we could talk about. It's not even funny. It's not even funny.
It's funny.
It is funny. It is funny. And we plan on making fun of it. If you don't like people being made fun of, or being made fun of.
Made of fun of.
Made of fun of. I've been hanging out in this state for too damn long.
Look, y'all. We're gonna be making a fun of you.
Okay, I'm not gonna make fun of any of you, and I'm definitely not gonna make fun of y'all, but if you believe stupid shit, like animals talking, or bushes being on fire and talking.
The burning bush.
Yeah. Or boats floating around for a year.
that was a pot plant. It was a pot plant.
You know he was smoking some good stuff.
That was a pot plant, and it was burning.
He was smoking some good stuff.
He was like...
We're a little motivated before we kicked off this episode. We were watching some YouTube videos of some of the more creative people out there. But and we will do this with alcohol. Listeners.
Yeah, we were gonna name this podcast Wine and
Oh my god, we had some good names.
Wine and Jesus.
Wine and Jesus was clever.
Gin and Jesus.
Gin and Jesus. What else were we gonna come up with? And none of you can steal this because we've copywritten all this shit. So
totally.
Drinking with Jesus. Jesus watches you poop.
Jesus does watch you poop. If Jesus watches everything, Jesus is into hardcore porn.
Don't
he
ruin.
Needs to not be
we got an
looking
episode coming up. We got an episode coming up.
Jesus needs to not be looking at my life because Jesus likes porn. I'm just saying.
You know Jesus is a freak. Come on. If you had eternity to sit around and do nothing except the same thing day in and day out, please. You know he's watching some freaky porn.
He's like, sorry, starving kids, hold on. Somebody's getting it on in California. Hold on.
I mean, if you look at the evolution of porn, just in like the last 20 years, imagine what Jesus has seen. Imagine what Jesus already knows about porn.
He's like, thank God they invented the razor. Thank you, Dad. That's what Jesus said. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Dad. I love you, Dad. I've run out of beer.
Guys, we gotta get a refill.
Alright, so Sandi has promised us, since this is our first episode, that she's gonna sing us out as part of our closure. So,
no.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No.
Feel free.
No, thank you. No.
Those of you who didn't get to hear our unrecorded audition, which would be all of you, I got to hear Sandi sing, and let me tell you.
It is awful.
That was an experience.
Terrible.
I don't think I'll ever forget. It was awesome. So, we are going to close out, and I'm going to say it really slow so she can get this song in melody in her head that she's been trying to think of for like 5 minutes now.
The Mickey Mouse Club. I'm not singing the Mickey Mouse Club song. Because you know what? Mickey Mouse might sue us.
That is true, but I think we only if
Mickey
you use
Mouse
like
himself.
less than 30 seconds of their song, they can't sue you. Something like that.
I don't want to sing that one.
So we talked about who we are. We talked about why we're here, and what are we going to talk about next time? Have you thought about that yet?
I got so many ideas. We're gonna have to shuffle. You know what? We'll just shuffle them and we'll pick one.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to totally wing it the next time we do this.
Just like we did this time.
Just like we did this time. It was awesome. Outlines be damned. That's okay. I didn't know what I was doing when I was in religion either, so why not just carry that on into this podcast to protect others from the evil of religion. Alright, so I'm signing off.
Yeah.
Are you signing off?
I'm signing off.
Alright, so until next time, peace.
Bye, y'all.